In today's video, I'm going to show you how to completely transform your BMW E92's front end by installing these absolutely sinister headlight assemblies. Now, these new headlights are an absolute neck breaker, so stick around, don't go anywhere, because I'm going to show you how to install these right now. So these are the stock headlight assemblies that come on the BMW E92, and they don't look terrible. They actually look pretty good for the time, but mine are pretty beat up and oxidized. You can see that I have a yellowish hue over them, and honestly, they just don't look as aggressive as I would like. The stock halo assemblies on the E92, even if you upgrade the bulb, always ends up being brighter on the inside than the outside. So overall, it just doesn't really give you much of an aggressive look. And you can actually see when you power on the headlights themselves, like the actual low beam headlights, it's casting this weird glare because of all the oxidation. And there's only so many times you can actually remove the oxidation from the headlight assemblies before you start to wear out the plastic. And we've kind of gotten to that point. So you can see this large glare while the headlight's on, and it just doesn't look good. And I've honestly wanted to upgrade to new headlight assemblies for the longest time. I just haven't. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to pull off these old factory E92 headlights. We're going to put my front lip back on after, and hopefully by the end of this video we can make my BMW look completely new and renewed. And I think it's just time we swapped them out for a brand new set of upgraded aftermarket ones. So here I actually have my brand new headlight assemblies. So if we remove all the packaging, we can actually see these are the new upgraded headlights that I'm hoping to install on my E92. And so you can see the halos themselves are full LEDs, and they're significantly thicker than the stock headlights. They're also this nice U shape, so this should make the front end look extremely aggressive when these are powered on. And they should be super bright, and having the brand new housing on the outside of them is going to make them even look better and just really bring out the whole front end of the E92. And on the side, we have this orange turn signal bulb that comes with these headlights, so I'll probably swap that out at a later point for an LED, but overall they look amazing. I love how aggressive the black housing looks on these upgraded headlights. And just holding them up against my E92, you can kind of see these are going to look absolutely beautiful once they're on the car. And to my knowledge, everything should be pretty plug and play. This large connector here is just going to install in the factory harness. We'll probably have to transfer over the ballasts and the headlight bulbs themselves. And yeah, you can actually see right here, this is the plug-in for the ballast. But besides that, there shouldn't be any coding or anything needed. They should be completely plug and play. And now the first thing we'll have to do to install these new headlights is actually remove the entire front bumper. And to do that, we'll actually have to lift the entire car off the ground, because we'll actually have to remove the wheel, and we'll have to remove the wheel liner to get access to the little screws that hold the wheel liner in place. All along here, these are all the little screws we're going to have to remove to pull off the wheel liner and get the side bracket of the front bumper loosened. And so I'll be showing you how to do this with minimal tools. So we'll remove one wheel at a time because I only have one floor jack here. And so the first thing you'll need is some sort of tire iron to actually loosen off the lug nuts from the wheel. That way we can lift this thing up and pull it off. Sweet. And now with the torque actually loosened off of the lug nuts, let's go ahead and jack up the vehicle so we can pull off the wheel. And then we'll jack up the car enough to where you can see there's a gap underneath the front wheel. And now we can go ahead and pull this entire thing off. And so if you have a 335i or just upgraded calipers in general, just be sure you don't slam the wheel into your brake calipers. But now that we're back here, we can actually pull off all the screws that are going to hold this wheel liner into place. So you can see all along here and along the top, and then we have one here connecting to the front brake duct, and then we'll have this 10mm one holding as well. And now you will need an 8mm socket to remove most of these little fender liner screws. And then once those are all removed, you should be able to get your hand right in here and pull these all off, and pull this one off of the stud, and then you'll have to pull this one underneath the top one. We only need to remove this front one. And then if you have any screws underneath the vehicle, so maybe if you've had a front lip on the car, anything like that, go ahead and remove all of them from the bottom of the vehicle. And now you can actually see we have a bunch of different fasteners holding in the side bracket of our front bumper. Now I've had some repairs done to my front bumper before, so you won't have all these different screws. It should just be two 10mm screws holding that front bracket into place, but go ahead and pull off anything from the side that could be holding this in. And now if you have the upgraded M3 front bumper with the enhanced brake duct for cooling, you might have a little bit more hardware to remove, but these should be attached to the bumper, so they should come off with the entire front bumper when we pull it off. But you can see here now the side of the front bumper is fully loosened, so nothing is holding this into place. The last bolts are actually going to be 4 underneath the hood, and then we'll do the same exact thing we just did over here on the driver's side. But now that all those bottom screws are removed, we should be able to pull off this fender liner. Let's go ahead and pop the hood, and then you'll see 1, 2, 3, and 4 T30 screws holding the front of that front bumper into place. And then we'll have everything we just did on the passenger side we'll do to the driver's side as well. But what I would recommend is that you actually remove these front 4 T30 screws last, because these are what's going to hold up the front bumper at the end and allow you to pull it off just a lot easier. And since I only have one floor jack for this DIY, we'll pop the wheel back on and do the same exact thing on the other side. Sweet. And now with the wheel back on, all we did was torque it just enough to be able to withhold the car's weight. Now we'll go ahead and drop the pressure off the jack, and then we'll loosen up the front bumper the same exact way we did here over on the other side. So I removed the front wheel liner and all of the screws holding that side bracket into place. But since I already have the vehicle in the air, we're just going to keep it up, and now I'll go ahead and remove those 4 T30 screws. And so a little trick, if you don't have a T30 socket handy, if you have one of the little bits like this, you can actually slide it into a 1/4 socket and use it as like a makeshift type wrench to actually loosen off those screws. And now if your BMW is equipped with the spray nozzles up front, just go ahead and grab a plastic pry tool and just pry the spray nozzles up just enough, and then you'll unclip the little sprayer, and then you should be able to pull it off. As well, if you have a tow hook, this is a good time. Go ahead and remove it. That way it doesn't hold the vehicle's bumper from being removed. Sweet. So let's go ahead and screw this out of place. And now you should be able to just slowly wiggle the front bumper off while being careful not to scrape the paint underneath. And now you can see the whole front bumper is removed. You can see the brake ducts all came off in one piece with the front bumper. So now it's time to actually remove the headlight itself. So we can start off by removing the 2 T30 screws holding it in from the top. And then on the back side, you'll actually see this 10mm bolt. So we can go ahead and pull this off as well. And now if you look close enough, you'll actually see this large connector here. This is going to be the main connector to the headlight. So it's going to have 2 pinch clips on either side. Simply pinch it together and you should be able to pull this connector off of the headlight. And then you will have your fog light wires that are going to be clipped in to the headlight assembly as well. So make sure you remove those. And then you'll have 2 more 10mm bolts right here. And these will be the final ones holding the headlight into place. So go ahead and place your hand on the front of the assembly while you actually loosen those 2 10mm off so the headlight doesn't fall off. And now you can actually use an extension. It makes it a lot easier, and just put it in just like this. And from here, you should be able to start peeling the headlight off of the vehicle. And now you can see we have the headlight fully removed from the vehicle once you remove all those bolts and unplug that connector. But now we actually need to remove the headlight assembly from this large plastic bracket it's connected to. And so it's going to be held in by 2 T30 screws. This is going to be the first one here. And then you'll have another one on the back side. And after removing these, the entire headlight should pull free from the plastic bracket. And now what I'm going to do is actually pop on some new gloves, because we're about to start handling the new headlight assembly, and I don't want to damage it by rubbing dust or dirt all into the new plastic housing. And now with the driver's side headlight fully removed, we can actually go ahead and grab the new headlight assembly, and then we'll attach it to the old plastic bracket. And we're going to need to transfer over some of the components from our factory headlight. We don't need to do much, so we'll pop the new ballasts into place. And shout out to BovMods, they actually hooked me up with 2 free ballasts to actually install on these headlights. So let's go ahead and pop these on. And now we'll go ahead and plug in the main connector to the front, and then we'll grab this little 4-pin connector and plug that into place as well. And now our new ballast should be able to install perfectly flush. Sweet. So now I need the bolts from the old ballast. So let's go ahead and pull these little screws off, and I'm going to transfer them over to the new ballast and new headlight assembly. And now that we have the ballast on, you'll actually see that we have this module here. This is extremely important. So we'll need to transfer over the factory headlight module, and it's supposed to plug in right here. So now go ahead and remove the 4 T20 screws holding that into place. All 4 screws are removed, so we'll carefully pull this off. And now we can transfer this module over to the new one. And now I want you guys to really take note of this. The connector is slightly off-centered to the right, so make sure that you're connecting the module the same exact way. It's off-centered, and then we'll plug that into place. And now we'll firmly press that down and re-tighten on those T20 screws that we took from the old headlight assembly onto the new one. And preferably you want to go in a star pattern because it evenly distributes weight down onto this thing, and then we'll torque it down at the end. And most of these screws from the headlight assembly are actually cross compatible. So if you're missing one for your ballast or that control module or anything, you can actually use all of these screws cross compatibly and borrow from one another. And then this headlight already comes equipped with a turn signal light that we can replace later on, but we're going to just use the stock one so I can show you what comes fully out of the box. But now what we need to do is pop off this cover here so we can install our new headlight bulbs. And it should be 6 Phillips screws holding this cover into place. And these are actually brand new bulbs I had installed on the factory headlight assembly. So that's perfect. We'll just go ahead and pop them out of place, and then I'll transfer them over to the new one. And I want you guys to look closely. You see this blue line on the D1S bulbs. On the new headlight assemblies, you're going to see this like tier shape. You want to make sure you line up this blue line with the slit at the top. And now the last thing we need to transfer over is recommended. Now you don't have to transfer this module over. I want to say this is what actually controls the AFS function, like the adaptive headlight function. But to remove it, you'll just loosen the T20 screws and the connector holding it into place. There's a little cover on the new headlight assemblies here. This is what you'll pull off to actually install that silver little motor. And as you can see, if you wiggle the silver piece back and forth, it starts to move the entire headlight. So I think this is actually for the AFS function. Now, when I reached out to the company that sent me these headlights, they said you don't have to transfer this module over. You might just have a headlight error, warning on your dashboard. So I'm gonna not transfer it over and see what happens. But just a disclaimer, it seems a little hard to remove because you can't just pull it straight off. It seems connected to the actual headlight components itself. But with that, I'm not going to transfer it over. I'm going to just pop the cover back into place. And now before we actually install this large plastic bracket onto the headlight, I'm going to just plug it up to make sure I don't have any errors and that everything works accordingly, because I don't want to install the entire headlight and do all that work, then I have to pull it right back off. All right, so let's go ahead and plug the headlight into place. And now we'll go ahead and plug up the vehicle's battery so we can test this new headlight. And then moment of truth, get our new key fob that we just installed onto our E92. Link for this down below. Let's go ahead and fire up the ignition. And then moment of truth, here's the big reveal, and everything works. Man, that looks good. As you can see, the new halos look extremely bright and way more aggressive, guys. Look at how crisp these new halos are compared to the stock factory headlight assemblies. Even with having upgraded LED bulbs, look at these compared to the brand new crisp halos that we just installed on our BMW. These look so much better. Man, I'm hyped. So let's go ahead and turn the headlight to the on position. And as you can see, the headlight projector works. And guys, this looks 10 out of 10. The camera makes it look like it's flashing. It's actually not. But look how crisp and clear our new headlight assemblies are. And look at that. That is old and dingy on the factory headlights. And these new ones look like a complete game changer. So now we want to test the turn signal bulbs. And we can see right there that it all works properly. And these things look 10 out of 10. Nice. And the most important thing is I actually don't see any errors on the dash, even without transferring over that little silver component. Warnings or anything crazy, it looks like everything was completely plug and play. Like, these just look dingy and old, and our new headlights look so much more aggressive, guys. I am hyped. So now we went ahead and unplugged the headlight since we tested everything works properly, and now we can actually transfer over the large plastic bracket and install these fully. And as we're putting the plastic bracket on, you'll actually see it starts to cover our side turn signal light. And so to make this a lot easier to replace in the future, right now, you'll actually go ahead and loosen the bulb, and then we'll feed it through the top of the bracket. And now we can put one screw in here and then the other one in right here. And now that we have our two T30 screws back into place, everything's really set for us to install this entire new headlight assembly back onto our BMW. And then you'll kind of just have to play with it to find the best angle to reinstall this all. Just be careful you don't scratch up our brand new plastic housings onto any of the metal components of the engine bay. And then what you can do now is actually just sit these top bolts into place. Don't tighten them, just screw in the top two T30 screws. And for the best fitment, I would actually tighten these two screws down last. Just have them kind of hand tight to hold up the headlight, but I would actually recommend focus on these two here on the side. Go ahead and punch those back into place, and then we can focus on the two top T30 screws at the very end, because if we tighten those down right now, it's going to kick up the whole headlight assembly and we won't be able to play with anything. And what I would recommend you guys do to get the best absolute fitment is you actually hold up the headlight, so you push up on it while you tighten down the two top screws, and this is going to give you the best flush fitment against the fenders. And now once you have your fitment down, something worth noting is you do not want to over tighten these screws. You have to keep in mind this bracket here is metal, as to where the brackets on the headlights themselves are plastic. So do not over tighten these. Sweet. And then the last bolt I'd recommend y'all do is install the final 10mm bolt onto the rear. And now something to note is the more you tighten this one into place, the more the back of the headlight's going to suck in. And so you want to take note of that, because if you tighten it too much, you'll see the headlight actually start to run up against the fender, and that could make your fitment look weird or crack the headlight itself. So you actually want to just play around with it to get the best fitment, but do not over tighten this back bolt. And now the final thing to do is let's go ahead and plug up the headlight assembly once and for all. And then something worth noting on these headlights is the headlight adjuster is this hexagon looking peg here. Now you won't really have to worry about this till you plug everything up and you have it installed, but just know that if you twist this thing clockwise or counterclockwise, that's how you actually adjust the height of the light. And then here you can see we did the same exact thing. We replaced our passenger side headlight the same exact way we just did the driver side one. Perfect, guys. And just like that, we have both of our brand new headlight assemblies fully installed on our E92, and it just looks so amazing. I can tell as soon as I put the front bumper back on, this is going to look so much better, years newer. Just having that brand new shiny plastic housing makes the car look so much newer and crisp. Having the top LCI style eyebrow, and then you have the wings along the side. Overall, this just looks so much more aggressive and modern. And now let's give everything one final test. I plugged the battery back up, and look how absolutely aggressive these look. It just looks 10 out of 10. The halos are so much more bright and thicker and crisp. And I know the camera's doing a lot of weird flashing, but that's just the camera having trouble focusing. Even with the headlight projector beams on themselves, the light just looks like it's going to cast so much brighter and crisp. But now that we tested everything works, let's go ahead and pop the front bumper back on in the vice versa of how we removed it. And then once you pop the front bumper into place, just kind of hand tighten these top 4 T30 screws on just to kind of hold everything, and then you'll wiggle the side brackets back into place. Just be careful not to scratch up our brand new headlights. And then we'll hop on over to the other side and do the same thing. And now you can see I have both new headlights fully installed, the front bumper's back on, and now what we'll have to do is actually install the little eyebrow gaskets that go here. And shout out to BovMods, they actually hooked me up with a free set of these little headlight gaskets. Use code IZZY9X. They said that they would shoot y'all 10% off if you use that code, but Lord knows I need them. The old gaskets from my factory headlights look absolutely horrid, and they're all damaged and dinged up. The whole gasket part is actually worn off, so Lord knows I need these. And then we'll simply just slide these into place till they clip in. Nice. This is actually really good. This will actually help the headlight last longer and allow less water to get into the engine bay. And it has been a while, so I actually want to reinstall my front lip back on as well and really make my front end look great. Right now I'm taking my car out. I just got back from somewhere, so we're going to take it out on a little drive. and I'm gonna show you guys the front headlights and how they look overall. And you can see it is bright as day out here. It is almost noon, and the headlights look absolutely amazing. They're extremely bright. I mean, look at the halos, guys. You can see these things coming from a mile away, and especially with my front lip back on, the entire car looks so aggressive. I mean, doing a little walk around from every angle, it just looks so much more mean. And I really want you guys to look at the design. The attention to detail is insane. I love the winged little tips on the turn signals, and then the DTM styled halos are super bright and aggressive. They look sinister. I love the eyebrow up top that kind of gives it that LCI aesthetic. And they just look absolutely amazing, and 10 out of 10. This is hands down one of the best modifications I've ever done on my E92. The entire front end of the car just looks so much newer and so much more aggressive. And if you were wondering how the halos look at nighttime, you are in for a surprise because they are so freaking bright. It almost looks like at night you have the headlights running, even though it's just the halos. And now I have my E92 pulled up so the headlights are fully on, and you guys can see that the headlight beams that are being emitted are extremely crisp. And if we actually come up to the headlight, you can see the projector looks extremely high quality. There's not a lot of distortion in the light, but I'll actually show you guys the light that it emits. You can see how much it lights up the road. And just to show you, the driver's side headlight beam is always going to be a bit lower. That's for driving regulations to make sure people don't get blinded as you're driving by. But we can actually adjust that on our own. So I'll probably move the little path of light up to match the other one. And this is going to sound weird. It's kind of just one of those OCD type ticks, but I absolutely love the way the light distorts the color at the very end of the beam. You can see right here, we have this purple blue kind of distortion, and it looks so nice. I don't know what about it, just looks extremely satisfying. It reminds me of the brand new headlight assemblies on the G series where it has the blue strip of light on the headlights themselves. But we can see our passenger side shoots our light all the way out over there, and the light just looks so crisp and clean compared to the factory ones. These headlights are extremely bright and they just look so good. But what I'll actually do is fire up the brights. So now you can see that the brights are on, and look at the difference. You can see the light all the way down by the building, and here comes a car. But even there, you can see the light cast against that. But I'll show you from this view here, regular headlights. So you can see the passenger side headlights shooting all the way out over there. The driver's side one is a bit lower, but again, I'll adjust that later to match. But now with the brights on, you can see that it lights up the entire road. And you have to keep in mind, my E92 is lowered, so the headlight beams are by default always going to shoot a bit on the low side. So even if you decided to run your brights and drive on the road, honestly, you won't even be a hazard for other drivers. And I know that sounds crazy, but keep in mind, if your car's lowered a few inches, it makes a complete difference. I see trucks driving around all the time with their brights on. That is a hazard. But for a lowered car, your headlight beams are always going to dip down a bit lower either way. So if you look at the actual path of the light itself, you can see that it's not really going to be a hazard, but it's extremely bright with the brights on. But I just wanted to show you guys how these look at nighttime for reference. They look extremely nice. Hands down, this has been one of the best upgrades I've ever done to my BMW and completely revitalized the front end.